Hey there, fellow streakers. Welcome to the Streaking Show. Jami and I are excited to talk with you today about the comments that are in the Streaking app. We're going to answer some questions, and we're going to give our thoughts and ideas around those streaks. So let's start streaking. What is streaking and why should you do it?
Streaking is how you set up personal winning streaks. Look at who you want to be and what you need to do to become that person. This is streaking.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jami.
And we are streakers. Through 30 years of marriage and 7 children, we have learned the power of consecutive consistency or streaking.
To start streaking is simple. You just follow these 3 laws. Make it laughably simple, keep a record, and join the streaking community.
Streaking is your hidden superpower. With it, you will consistently progress and grow in whatever area of life you want.
In this podcast, Jeff and I will share all the fun, exciting, serious, solemn, wonderful parts of family, spiritual, professional, and personal life, and how streaking powers it all.
So join us in the conversation, join the movement, and start streaking today. I love listening to that introduction because I think about our 31 years of marriage and how much we've really been through and how much we've been through in just the past 2 weeks.
I agree. I was thinking this morning, I was getting down on myself for something. And, I know what it was. I went to a conference a week ago, an education week at BYU.
It seems like forever ago, but it was just a week ago.
Just a week ago.
Or no,
I
think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. No, hold on. We're thinking about this because we've been in our house now for 1 week, and you were at education week prior to that. So it's been 2 weeks ago.
So it hasn't been very long. No. And the fact that we can't figure out how long says how much we've crammed into that period of time.
If you were just to look around where we're podcasting from right now, we are in an empty box, basically. I'm
sitting on pillows in a camp chair.
In a camp chair.
So I can be tall enough
to be able to reach the microphone. And I'm sitting on a, lounge chair.
An outdoor
So we don't get our furniture for our house until this weekend, so it's been kind of crazy. You were talking about your conference.
So one of the classes that I went to was talking about the power of getting up early. And at that class, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to start getting up earlier. And since I've been to that class, I have not gotten up as early as I wanted to when I was sitting in the class.
And you were chastising yourself.
And I was chastising myself and analyzing how much of that, because I was telling you, I said, there is real limitations here. We are living in a house that we don't have our own bed. We're still sleeping on an air mattress that deflates halfway through the night and we have to reinflate it. So there are valid reasons why I'm tired and not getting up as early. But it's also sometimes that place where you're like, okay, but what's a really valid reason? And when am I just giving myself outs? What's the excuse?
And what'd you come up with? What are the valid reasons for giving
You know what? I
yourself an
tabled it till we get our bed. That when we get our bed, I can reevaluate.
Then you can reevaluate. But the air mattress, we should do air mattress living more often, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Everyone should do air mattress living more often.
Wake up in the middle of the night where we've rolled into the center.
Yes.
Or one of my favorite things is when you get out and I sink
down, or when you get in and I get launched off. Yeah. Yes, air mattresses are fun.
Those are absolutely. It's so much fun, I think.
I'm excited to talk about today what we are excited to talk about today, which is, and this was my idea, I want to go through the community on the app and talk about some of the streaks that people are setting and why the community is such a powerful component and just some of the creativity in the streaks that people have.
Yeah, I think that the community, one of my favorite things is to look at the community and just see what people are doing and what they're commenting on and all the different ideas and creative streaks that they use, or that they use the streaking methodology for which they use the for. I didn't want to put that preposition at the end, so I came back to for which they use the methodology.
Yep.
Have you ever noticed that the preposition at the end? It's a weird one.
You're not supposed to have them. That's
I know,
why you feel
but
that way.
Okay. So with that, first comment right out of the chute, we have a streaker out there at JB_4563 that says, "Do at least one push-up per day," and it's this user's first day that they started it, and so they've already gotten likes and everything because the comment is, and we're off.
Day one, here we go. So first of all, being able to post on your first day, I think takes courage, because we've talked to a lot of people that don't feel comfortable posting until they've done it a couple days.
Right.
Or weeks.
Not even a couple days. I
or
mean, it's
like
been
100 days.
100 days.
And so posting.
And we know all of you out there. We know that you're using the Streaking app. We don't know who you are or what it is you're doing, but we know you use the Streaking app and that you're not posting yet, which is fine. We're okay with that. And we also show that it's great to see people that
to
are.
see the community.
Because it's
right.
so encouraging.
Right. And so seeing someone post for their first day is exciting. And to be able to have the encouragement that they get for that. And the courage to post a laughably simple streak. That's one of the things that I think.
What do you think about this streak? One push-up. I mean, it doesn't really matter what we think, but what do you think?
So I love this one because I've thought about setting it myself.
Have you?
And I haven't done it yet.
How come? What scares you from setting this streak? Why don't you want to do it?
Because I need to work on my arm strength so much that when I work on it, it gets a little discouraging being like, wow, I really do need to work on my arm strength. So this person said, do at least one push-up per day. Earlier, a couple months ago, someone set a laughably simple streak to do a push-up one day. And on her comment, she said, I'm starting off with wall push-ups, which also was encouraging to me that I thought, okay, I love the idea of starting wherever you are.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that it takes courage, I guess. Even a laughably simple one takes a little bit of that courage where you're like, okay, no, I'm going to commit to doing this.
I'm going to commit this time. I'm going to do it. I'm getting a Bowflex. And I'm going to commit.
And I'm going to commit.
I agree. So, another thing, though, I think that's important that we bring out here is that I asked you, I said, because you're intimating that you're like, maybe I should set this streak. There are a lot of streaks that I consider that I have not yet set.
Right.
And that I may or may not set. And I was just wondering, what is the decision process that you go through to decide whether or not you're going to set a streak?
It's changed. I think the biggest thing that I look at is, am I going to commit to it? So, and we've talked about this, I believe on our last podcast, or maybe it was a streaking meeting. One of the biggest differences between a streak and a goal is that when you set a streak, the methodology of streaking is set it laughably simple with the understanding that you are building into the streak accommodations for life. In other words, you really are saying, I'm trying to create something that is so simple, I have no excuses. There is no excuse that I can think of that I wouldn't be able to do this. So you are truly committing to the consistency of it. That is the commitment, not the grandeur of the task that you're doing. A goal is very different. When you set a goal, you are committing to the grandeur. You are stretching. You want something that is outside of your current reach. Inherent in that is an understanding that you may not reach it. So you set a goal with the hope that you'll be able to reach something, but also an understanding that you could fail. So you start off with an acceptability that failure is an option. Whereas with streaking, I believe you start off with the expectation that failure is no option. So one is, and I believe that we need both, but it's really, really important to understand the difference between the two. That streaking, and this is where when we talk about a floor, because we had so many people being uncomfortable with the idea of setting something so laughably simple that it was, what's the point? It's not going to make a difference. I'm not reaching. I'm not pushing myself. And so there were many people that we talked to, most of the time high achieving people, that are not comfortable with this idea of having something that they're not reaching for. And that's when we got to the point that we recognized that we're like, a streak is not a goal.
Yeah.
It is a floor. It's the thing that you stand on that allows you to be able to reach. And so inherent in the difference when you say, what's your thought process when you take on a new streak? In my mind is an understanding that I need to commit to being consistent in doing this every single day.
Yeah.
There will be no excuses. So it makes it much more of an intentional, I'm not hoping, I'm holding myself accountable to doing it every day.
There's a different level of commitment that you have around a streak than you do to a goal. This is one of the contentions that I have with goals versus streaks. Goals have built in them already failure. I'm going to accept failure for a goal.
The possibility of failure, the possibility of not reaching that goal, because you are reaching right now. The bar that you are reaching for is currently outside of your reach.
True. What I see is, so the possibility of failure in my mind is building failure into the system. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you are deciding whether or not to do a streak, you're deciding, when you say, I'm going to streak this, I'm going to do it every single day, every week, or every month. And part of your decision process is, am I ready for that level of commitment? Because when I commit to this, it's a higher level, deeper level, more significant, stronger commitment than a goal. Mm-hmm. A streak is, I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. A goal is, I may get there.
I hope. I'm going to. And
it does make a difference.
One of the things that you've talked about a lot that I think is a super relevant to the conversation is that a goal is by nature outcome based. Mm-hmm. You either hit the goal or you don't hit the goal. So the outcome is there or it's not. That is what decides whether or not the goal succeeded or failed.
Right.
A streak is the total opposite. It is input based. You aren't looking at the outcome at all, really. You are really focusing on the input.
Yeah.
If you can combine those two things in a situation where you look at it and say, okay, I understand that outcomes are important to look at. I don't think we can ignore outcomes. The results and outcomes are important. However, goals have taught us to only look at the outcomes, and that if the outcome isn't reached, it's failure.
Right.
And sometimes an outcome can be reached because of serendipitous events that happened, not necessarily because of the input that the person put into the goal.
Yeah.
And sometimes failure can happen because of serendipitous events, not because of the input that the person put into the goal.
Right.
And so we can sometimes read goals or read things wrong because the outcome either went our way or didn't go our way, but maybe that outcome wasn't completely based on our inputs.
Yeah.
Whereas streaking really teaches you the discipline to focus on the input. And then recognizing that if you are willing to truly focus on that input, the output follows.
Yeah.
There will be the output that follows.
So that's where, when you talk about deciding whether or not to do a push-up streak, just as the example,
exactly,
you're looking at it and saying, am I ready to dedicate what a streak requires, even though it's laughably simple? Am I ready to devote myself to the constancy, to the consecutiveness of getting that streak? If I'm not going to start it.
Then I'm not going to start it
because it doesn't make sense to. Because as soon as I say, I'm going to do
works out, I'm committing.
I'm committing. I'm going to say that this streak is alive and well, and I'm going to continue forward with it.
Yep.
So interestingly, a couple of responses. This at Kathleen Kosel, who's one of our streaker features. She's a fantastic streaker. This one is on my streak wish list.
Yes,
is what she says, which is the one push up, and then. JB_4563 responds, I hope you add it. I'm really excited to see the progress. I may add a pull-up one soon if this goes well. I think that's really wise for someone that's starting out streaking, recognizing and knowing that one streak at a time. Because again, to your point, when you are deciding to do a streak, you are deciding at that moment in time, I'm going to do this every single day.
Yep. I'm going to.
Or every week or every month, whichever streak you choose to do.
I'm going to be intentional in this one. So here's another one of my fun ones. Pick up the guitar daily. So I love the laughably simpleness of this streak. All you have to do is pick up the guitar. Inherent in that is a recognition that there's days that's going to be all you can do.
Yeah.
Also inherent in it is a recognition that once you've picked it up, you set this streak because you want to play the guitar.
Right.
So once you pick it up, that feeling of like, okay, it's in my hands. Let's get going. You've already succeeded. And now you can enjoy the part of the playing.
Right.
So she says, this streak is still newish, but it's one of my favorites to do every day. My dad and brothers have played guitar for decades, and I've always wanted to learn. And now I am. I can't believe how fast I'm learning by picking it up every day. The low floor takes the pressure off to formal practicing. If I did the math, picking it up daily for 5 to 10 minutes adds up faster than doing a long practice just a couple times a week. Laughably simple doesn't mean ineffective. If anything, it means more effective. And it's, as she was talking about that, the principle, you talk a lot about the principle of the flywheel. And can you talk again what a flywheel is and what that principle is?
Sure. Flywheel is a big, heavy, round wheel that's used a lot in manufacturing. It's also used in engines and motors in order to use the momentum of something that's large and huge, that once it gets going, you only have to do small, tiny pushes in order to keep it going. To get it off the ground or to get it rolling or to get it moving, it takes immense amount of big energy if you want to do it all right at first, or it's just continue to do small pushes every single day until that metaphorical flywheel starts to spin on its own. And then as it spins, you still have to push it because there's no such thing as a perpetual motion machine. Mm-hmm. You cannot start something and expect it to continue and continue and continue. It will stop. It will slow down. No matter what, there is no such thing as a perpetual motion machine. What you need to do as an individual with your streaking is those streaks, those everyday streaks, are the pushes that keep your perpetual motion machine, metaphorically, again, there isn't one, but keep your flywheel, going, that otherwise would not keep going.
Right.
And so the flywheel is like this: pick up the guitar every single day. I think it's fantastic.
I do too.
Because that's the push I needed.
Right.
And it's the barrier to entry as far as picking up the guitar is so low that I can't make excuses for myself, one. But the other thing I was thinking, the other side of that is I have instant success, which you also brought up. I have this instant success that I just picked up the guitar. Isn't that fantastic? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And how much I learn from just picking up the guitar. Mm-hmm. I love also how she says in here, or the streak reads as pick up the guitar daily. There's no time associated with that. So if I pick it up and set it back down, the streak counts. Mm-hmm. Now, people may say, well, that's kind of ridiculous if you just pick it up and set it back down, but it's not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous at all. Mm-mm. What we often do is on the other side of it, we set it so ridiculously hard that we don't even pick it up. I don't even want to touch that thing because I have to do that for an hour and a half, and I've got to practice every day for an hour and a half. Whereas I look at it and say, you know what, that guitar is my friend. I want to pick it up and just, do a couple of chords on it, put my fingers in a couple of different places, and all of a sudden you realize that you have been, quote unquote, practicing, but you've been doing it without even thinking because it's a welcoming opportunity. It's an invitation. It's not a expectation, requirement, really heavy type words that would put you into that whole practice.
I love that. I love that because there was obviously an emotional component to this. There was a memory and a connection to family and a desire for her to want to learn this guitar. And so it has that positive feeling. And what I hear as you're listening is the difference between turning that positive feeling into something that remains positive and becomes friendly versus turning it into something that becomes a whip.
Yeah.
And so by inherently saying, I'm just going to pick up this guitar daily. Right. I'm just going to hold it. And even if you just do that for a while, use that word just.
Just.
There's something
I hate that word just.
There's something that's happening as you're doing it. And I think about it and I think, okay, you set this streak. What if you set this streak and you really do just pick up the guitar and put it down?
Right.
For the first 2 weeks, let's say, or however. There's something happening inside as you're doing that. You're not going to just pick it up and put it down. There's going to be an emotional component, a memory attached to it. You're going to notice the way that it feels. You're going to ask yourself, do I really want to be doing this? Am I really? So one of two things will happen. You're going to realize that if you're just picking it up and putting it down and you never get past that, you're going to reevaluate and think, okay, maybe I really don't want to play the guitar. It was great for my dad and my brothers, but it's really not something I'm interested in. I just always thought I was.
Right.
Or you're going to realize, no, I really do want to do this. And because you start playing it.
Yeah.
Because you start, that information alone is huge. Being able to know if it is something you really wanted to do, or if it's just something you've seen someone else do and you thought you wanted to.
Yeah.
And then as you progress and move forward, I really, really think there's a huge amount of value and power to what you were saying about it being a friendly thing, that this guitar is now your friend and it's time that you're intentionally spending doing something that you've wanted to do. And that time is variable. It doesn't matter the length of the time, because what you've committed to is making it a part of your day each day based on how your day is going. And that as you continue to do that, we are motivated and propelled by the fact that it's friendly, that you're like, okay, I'm enjoying this. And enjoyment, we want to do the things that we enjoy more versus turning it into this whip of, oh, I need to do this.
I got to make it happen. I've got to make
and
this.
And even sometimes when it's set so ridiculously high that we did it for 25 minutes, but the goal was 30. Well,
I failed. Yeah.
I didn't, even though you
Whereas
did it for 25 minutes.
Whereas with this, I pick it up and I win.
And it's an emotional component, but
it is
it's
setting
real.
yourself up for success.
It is. Another thing I was thinking, sorry, just
Go ahead.
with that flywheel.
Yeah.
Getting it going is so significant. And when she said being able to pick it up every day versus maybe doing it once a week or twice a week or just inconsistently, anytime you do something inconsistently, you're starting to push that flywheel over. You have to start over every time.
I like how she says this streak is still newish.
Yeah, newish.
It's a baby streak.
It's a baby streak.
It's just been born.
Yes.
And it's
crawling.
It's crawling. And she's done it for 16 days.
Right.
I mean, at the time of that post, she's done it for 16 days. So I'm with you. One of the other things I thought about while you were talking a little bit about the idea of success is when you set a streak, you're setting yourself up for success. Mm-hmm. And that is something I've found since you and I have been streaking for 7 years now. It is something I found that carries over into a lot more in life. Mm-hmm. You set yourself up for success in so many things because my mindset now changes to where I look at anything that I want to start doing, start learning, get better at, think I should be doing. I just start to think, okay, what is the streak that will answer the call for this particular feeling that I have inside?
Yep. I had that exact experience the other day when there was a thing that I was like, oh, what can I do to get better at this? It's something. And immediately I had to chuckle because I thought, well, if you really are being serious about it, if you're really truly saying, I really do want to do this, set a streak around it.
Yeah. So another one that I'm looking at here is read at least one sentence from a textbook or a research article 8 days. Mm-hmm. So this user is @Jess. As a graduate student working on my master's, I recently started my fall semester, and rather than procrastinating and then trying to skim read my textbooks articles, the streak is as simple as reading one sentence a day. Most of the time, it takes just picking up my textbook, and I find myself reading more than a sentence at a time. What are your thoughts?
Again, that getting over it. So there's so much that we are learning to mentally overcome. And when we look at like graduate work and anything educational, there is so many things to learn. And it's interesting. The more you learn, the more you realize how much there is to learn.
Yeah.
And it can be overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
And looking and thinking. And so is there sometimes a little bit of comfort in the ignorance is bliss aspect where you're like, oh, so I think about that and graduate, and you've got all this work you need to do. And so you feel like I've got to make a good solid amount of time to get it done.
Yeah.
And then the day goes by and you didn't do that. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to do it. Because it's important. And my tomorrow self is going to be better than my today self was. I just know it. And you get 2 days into it and And then you get to this place where you've missed it a couple times and you're procrastinating it now because you're just like, I mean, just the whole component of that feeling like you're failing at something that you know is valuable and important to you. I mean, she applied for graduate school, she or he applied for graduate school, paying the money, going. Obviously, this is important.
Right.
And we get it down on ourselves and think, why am I not doing it? This is important to me. And being able to set
So what do you think about the phrase, when I have the time? When you hear that phrase, what do you think? When you think, oh, when I have the time.
It's that something I used to say a lot.
Did you really?
Uh-huh. Or
did you feel like you felt like you said it a lot because and obviously I said it a lot too, as far as when I have the time. Mm-hmm. Why? Because there's other things that are in the way, or other things I feel that I'm more busy at, or, when I have the time. I found that statement is just, I'll never have the time.
No, it's a comfortable statement. Oh, when I have the time, I'm totally going to do that.
Yeah.
In the future,
my future self,
undisclosed, non-committed, when the time is there, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And the interesting thing is, I've had experiences where I've gotten to the place that I do have the time, and I'm like, I don't want to do it now. I've totally got the time,
I have the time,
and I'm just not in the mood. Now what? So it's an interesting thing. I am actively, currently, even this morning, trying to change that verbiage of saying, I'm going to commit to that time.
You're kidding.
Because even make the time is an interesting thing.
Oh,
that's still even a little bit in the future.
So let's look at streaking in this regards. When I have the time, or make the time, whatever it is. Time is a perceived, even though it's real and it has ticks on the clock and seconds are measured. There's a certain way to measure seconds and minutes, and
time,
it's still a perceived, what should I say? A perceived concept.
It's all about perception.
It's about your perception.
Totally.
Because when I start my streaking, I don't really pay attention to the time of when I say start streaking, I'm doing a streak. Mm-hmm. I don't really pay attention to the time. I know that there are some streaks, if I do them in the morning, they're laughably simple, or more laughably simple than when I do them in the evening.
Right.
And so I strive to do those streaks in the morning, but I don't always. Mm-hmm. And so time has no bearing on the streak, because I'm going to do the streak sometime in this day or sometime in this week. Mm-hmm. In other words, I'm not trying to find the time. I've already decided that I'm going to do it. It's just now when I do it. Mm-hmm. And then when I do it, like, for example, pick up the guitar, or for me, read at least a paragraph in a nonfiction book. When I do that, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do that right now. And I start doing it. And before I know it, 20 minutes of time has gone by. Mm-hmm. But my focus is not on that time. And I think that is one of the fallacies that we live off of, or the excuses that we give ourselves, is to say, when I have the time.
Right.
Because like you said, when I get to the time, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this right now anyway.
I'm not in the mood. I've got the time. But
Interesting point on that. So when we were writing the book, Streaking book, there were times where I would block out 2 hours in a particular day and say, I'm going to write or edit for 2 hours in that day. And I remember getting to that 2 hours and thinking, oh, I really don't want to do this right now. And I wouldn't. Mm-hmm. Or I would find other things that would come in there. So I changed that to say, I still would block a 2 hour period of time, but I would give myself permission to just write one sentence. In other words, just keep the streak alive.
You've got 2 hours, but all you have to do is write a sentence.
I'm going to write at least one sentence in that 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And that ultimately would result in 3-4 pages of being edited, mm-hmm. or being written. And then similarly, you and I would talk about a time to, okay, we need to sit down and talk about this portion of the book. And inevitably, it would come and go, and we wouldn't even do it. But if we did it more in the context of a streak, that's when we'd get what we needed. It's really
it's baffling,
baffling and fascinating.
And fascinating.
Yes.
I agree. To try and understand, why does this work but this didn't work, and why do I think this way but not this way, and counterintuitive. Maybe that's more the word I guess I'm looking for, is that I feel like doing something big should be motivating, but sometimes it's so demotivating. And doing something small should be easy, in the sense of, oh yeah, you should feel motivated to do that. But sometimes it feels like, well, it's not going to make a difference, so So the things that you have to overcome
Yeah.
to be able to recognize what's going to, the value of what you're doing and
Right.
where you're spending your time.
Okay, so a couple of comments back on this as far as read at least one sentence from a textbook or research article. A couple comments back. Way to go. I would wish you good luck, but we know luck has nothing to do with it. So good work and keep on keeping on.
I loved that because the focus was on great input.
Yes.
You're focusing on the inputs.
Absolutely.
And it's not luck that's going to get you there.
Yeah. This is such an important concept. Drops in a bucket add up faster than we think. Glad you found a great new way to learn.
That's so good. Drops in a bucket add up
Drops in
faster
buckets,
than you
yeah.
think.
What do you think as you read through the community? What are some of the things? I mean, we've read some comments from it, and we have looked at those. I totally enjoy reading through the community because I get motivated every time I read.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many positive, wonderful comments that are made and appreciation and celebration. In law number 3 of streaking, we talk about the join the streaking community. And often we talked about how that would hold you accountable, when in actuality, the streak holds you accountable,
Right.
not the community.
Not
And
the
so when you
community.
start to look at the community, that actually is the place of celebration and exploration and inspiration. All of those things come together in this community. It's the most unique community I have ever been a part of, is this one right here.
And I think it was last week on the podcast, Talon said, this is a community of doers. All of these comments are on things that people are actually doing. Like, that's a pretty amazing concept to look at and think. And then to receive the validation, not validation, that's not the word I'm looking for. It's being able to have these groups of people celebrating your small successes too. And why do we celebrate the small successes? Because we recognize that sometimes those small successes are what make everything, it's where you start. And so we're excited that you've had the courage to start. Keep it going.
I love
You're
it.
doing it.
So here's one from a newer streaker, and this is great. It's at DAOUD MUSIC. So Dawood Music is the name, and I love it. He has Italian is the streak, and I'm supposing that's like one word of Italian daily,
Yeah.
something like that. And and the comment is, or he or she, sorry, I don't know, but let's try this thing.
Let's try it.
Let's just
All
give
right,
this a go.
let's give this a go.
And oftentimes when I'm talking with people, we ask them, and you and I both, we ask them to suspend your disbelief.
Yep.
Because you have to suspend your disbelief on small things not making a difference.
Yep.
That the small things done consecutively will absolutely make a difference. And anyone on the streaking community that starts a streak will right away start to doubt, is this really going to make a difference? Or maybe not right away, but
I
about
think it's
14
part of
days
the
in.
human nature, human condition to doubt that, to be like, I think about people that have done a streak for, sorry, Lily, but I always think about Lily where her streak.
She's like, I'm forever the child that broke the streak and didn't go back. Well, it is enshrined in the book.
But it's that human nature component where, because she was consistently reading only the 1 or 2 verses in her scriptures that she wanted to, she was feeling bad and thinking, I'm still only doing the 1 or 2 verses. So she stopped the streak.
Yeah.
And I just remembered, so how much have you read since then?
Oh, none.
None. So it's an interesting thing that we have to overcome. It's so fascinating.
How have you overcome that? How have you, as you've been a streaker and streaking, how have you overcome that?
I do feel like it's a journey. I feel like there's times that, so I'll give you an example. I have my streak that I set a little while ago to ask a question.
Uh-huh.
And I write it down each night. And I set it when I was teaching. I was teaching a class at the time that I set the streak, and I'm no longer teaching that class.
But you still have the streak.
But I still have the streak. And there was a point where I evaluated strongly because I had written I felt like they were lame questions when I wrote them, because it was late at night, I was tired, and I was just doing it to keep the streak. I wasn't putting a lot of effort to think of good questions. I was just
So I want to pause
down.
right there for just a second, because this is one of the things that always comes up is this idea of I just was doing the streak. I wasn't putting in any effort. I'm like, stop right there. You are putting effort in.
Well, so
to even do the streak, you are putting effort in. Even though you may feel that the effort is small and not worth anything, you are putting effort in. Stop. End of sentence. Period.
Exactly. I guess that's why I say it's a journey, is because I still go through moments where I feel that, where I'm like, and I would think, should I keep this streak? Should I not keep this streak?
Right.
So 2 days ago, I went through, I wrote my question down, and then it was the first time that I kind of stopped and looked at what I had done. And as I looked at it,
when you say what you had done, looked back over all your questions?
Over the questions, took a sec, rather than just writing the question and moving on to my next streak, I stopped for a second and looked back, and I realized I need to go back and see how long the streak is. But I have 31 pages. I'm on page 32 of questions. And it's been interesting to go back and read those questions. So this streak is just to ask the question. I don't answer it. Although there's been a few times that I have written more and answered the question that I asked. But it's fascinating to go back and see the questions that I've asked. And even the ones that in the moment when I was doing it seemed...
160 days.
160 days I've been doing it.
Is how long you've been doing it.
So in 160 days, I have filled 32 pages every day with a date and a question. And some of them have gotten longer and some of them have spurred other questions. But a lot of them are just simple questions that I asked that day. And I look at it and I think that's
what was the
is
background?
amazing.
How come you started that streak? What was it? I mean, I know with the class, but did you feel like it was to improve your question?
Mm-hmm. It was to improve my ability to ask better questions.
Okay, so you were looking,
because
you're
better questions
like, you know what?
spurred better discussion.
Okay.
And I thought I need to learn how to ask a good question. So that people...
So then you started to write those questions. And as you started to write those questions, that helped you to ask better questions that would spur a discussion.
Right. The thing that's challenging about it is I look at it and I'm like, I ask myself, am I better at asking questions?
Are you?
So that is up for subjection. How do I even decide? How do I know if I'm better at asking questions?
Right.
I don't have a class to ask it to anymore.
Right. And there's no goal that you can say, I've crossed this finish line.
Yeah,
here I am.
I am officially better at asking questions.
Right.
But the fact that I have spent 162, is that what you said?
160 days.
160 days.
That's what I have.
Focusing on thinking about a question, I have learned things through that. And now I have pages of questions.
Yeah.
That says something to me.
Okay, so here's another one from one of our streakers. Spend time planning daily, and this was her 1,000th day.
Wow.
1,000 days, and she was just celebrating. This is Laurel Jensen milestone. Woohoo!
1,000 days.
1,000 days. Now, as you look at that, spend time planning daily. For her, it's probably. I mean, she may open the planner and say, "I've spent time planning."
I spent time planning,
and that's as laughably simple as it needs to be. And as she's used this, my guess is it's changed her life. I mean, there's been things that she's done because of that planning and seen because of that planning that she otherwise would not have done.
Would not have seen or
but
done.
it's just spending time.
And if nothing
daily.
else, at the very bare minimum, this thing of thinking, I've got to get better at planning. If you have that thought, you're like, well, I do it every day.
I do it every day. I have a streak. Or if you think that thought and think, well, you know what, I ought to set a streak. I'll open my planner daily. You took Megan Summerall's class. I mean, she's all about planning and having your control center and everything else. And when it came down to it, it's really a streak.
It is.
I mean, she has a great system.
And
the system is... Yeah.
Without the streak, I have not done it as well.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that one the other day. I thought, okay, I've got it. I spent all the money on that class. I love the class. I love what she's teaching.
So what would you do as a streak?
I have not set a streak around it yet.
Right. What would you set as a streak? Laughably simple. Have you thought? I'm sure you've thought of a couple.
Yes.
Are there any?
One is open my planner daily. Add something to my brain dump list daily. Evaluate.
So add one thing to your brain dump list.
Add one thing to my brain dump list daily.
Open your planner at least one time daily.
At least once daily.
And are those like, you feel that those are laughably simple? You could do those if you committed. You said, you know what, I'm going to set a streak around this and just do it.
Yep. And just do it. Open her Facebook group once daily because she posts a lot of new things that are on.
Could that be a weekly one, do you think?
Weekly, yeah, probably weekly.
Yeah.
That would be more of a weekly. But I could, weekly.
Just once or twice weekly. We talk a lot about, and you and I had talked about this before, some of the time versus all the time. All the time seems to be a daily streak. Some of the time is a weekly streak.
It's a weekly streak.
You could still be 100%
most of the time,
of both.
even most of the time can be a weekly streak.
Yeah, is a weekly streak, or even sometimes a monthly streak. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to switch to another.
Hold on, I got it. So here's with the 1,000 day. This is the celebration. One of the feedback. Insert victory dance here.
Yes.
Right. 1,000 days. Great job. Awesome. Holy cow, congratulations. I can only dream of this milestone, but man, I'm looking forward to it. Here's another really key and crucial part of streaking is you're only competing against yourself. It's not like Laurel's been doing this for 1,000 days. It's not like I can start today and say, okay, 1,000.
Right. And it's not like I can do it.
I can't do the intensity of it.
I can't do it 1,000 times this week and beat Laurel.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to plan 1,000 times this week. Here I go.
Right.
It's more, I look to where she is and say, this is awesome. I want to be there.
I want to be there. And I think other people do exactly what we're doing. You look at it and you think, how has opening your planner or spending time planning every day for 1,000 days changed your life?
Yeah.
Like, what could that do for me?
And it was, yeah. I mean, that's true.
You know what I mean? You
yeah.
read that streak and you're like, oh, that has the potential to change my life. I'm going to look into that.
And what I love too is how all of us instantaneously are like 1,000 days. That is awesome. Amazing.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And you just cheer her on. And I think,
that's almost 3 years.
Yeah. And
of every day opening your planner.
And there is something to be said that because you are only competing with yourself, her accomplishment doesn't deter me at all. I'm not down on myself.
Right.
I'm looking at being like, okay.
You're inspired.
You're inspired because she started at day 1.
Right.
Like she had to pass day 15.
Exactly.
She had to pass day 90. So she's been down that journey.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I can do that too.
Absolutely.
One day at a time.
Absolutely. All right, we've got time for one more. What do you got?
This one was one of my favorites. Pick one artist list activity daily. And when I read that streak, I was like, I don't understand that streak. Pick one artist list activity daily. And then I have a lot of hobbies, a lot of creative outlets. I wanted a streak to honor those hobbies, but making a streak for each one would get overwhelming quickly. So I made the artist list. It's a note on my phone with a list of streak-like tasks, but I only have to pick one each day. Things like crochet 2 rows, play a scale on the violin, edit 1 photo, watch a YouTube video about photography, cook or bake something just for fun, and so on. I love this streak because the element of choice keeps it interesting, and I love the low-pressure outlet to expand my creative self. I never know which task will fulfill it each day, and it's extra special when I find myself doing several tasks.
Wow. I
just loved the idea I loved the self-awareness to say, if I set something for all of them, it's going to be overwhelming. That's not what I'm trying to accomplish. What I want is, I love hobbies. Yeah. I love my creative outlets, and I want to do something with them every day. So I thought that one was a really creative and inspiring streak to have my artist list, and I'm going to choose something from it each day.
I see what she did, as one of the things that Talon and I talk about on Streaking Daily is about the broad versus narrow streak. And that this is a quote unquote broad, or the reason I use quotes is Talon would define it in this way, a broad streak in the sense that you can choose many different ways to fulfill the streak. Mm-hmm. But it's narrow in the sense that it's just one that I have to do. So it encapsulates both things so that I know when I have success.
Yes.
And I could even look at that and say, add or do one thing on my artist list every day.
Exactly. Even adding something to the list I had the exact same thought. And one of the comments, such a smart and creative streak, I may have to copy you. That's one of the things that I love about streaking is that and this is what has brought us to the place of, we need adopt a streak. Yeah. We need something where people can just adopt the streak, because there are going to be so many streaks out there that people look at and are inspired by and think, I want to do that too.
Yeah.
And when you think about the power of that, it's not a competitive I want to do it to. It's an added to. It's,
again, inspiring. I want to do it with you.
And so you get
that's so cool. Because I've been thinking about the guitar streak. I was like, I'd need a guitar first.
Yes, you would. But the drops in the bucket, in your own personal bucket, and then the drops in the world bucket, when you see more people adopting the streak, and now you're like, I'm doing this little thing personally, but then other people are adopting it, and the world is seeing more of this because we're all choosing to do a little bit.
Right. Exactly.
It's a neat thing.
Streakers, take an opportunity to download the Streaking app if you haven't already. Go into the community and take a look at what the streaks are that are being done, that are out there, and see the comments and celebrate with people. It's really a lot of fun. You don't have to start a streak yourself. You can just download the app.
You can just go and look and
look
see what what streaks people are doing.
And it's so inspirational. I mean, it just has something that I get happy every time I look at it and consider what everyone is doing. Also, if you haven't had a chance to purchase the Streaking book, which will give you a very good in-depth foundation on streaking, you could do that at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anywhere books are sold. And if you wouldn't mind giving us a review on that book, it helps to continue to promote it so that more people can, just like you have, benefit from streaking. Also, one other thing is, as you listen to this podcast, if you wouldn't mind giving it a rating, either, 5 stars, we'd love, obviously, but whatever it is, if you give it a rating, give us some feedback, and we'll do our best to make it even better. So speaking of that, if there's a topic you would like us to cover in streaking or parenting or family or anything, it's all powered by Streaking, just like we say. Please drop us an email. You can drop me an email at Jeffrey, Jefffery, at streakingmastery.com, or
Jami at Jami at streakingmastery.com. And until we see
well,
and
I
talk
thought you
to
were
you
going to
next
say
week.
something else.
Nope.
I was like, are you going to say you can follow us on?
You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
There we go.
We're on TikTok.
I mean, you
now.
just like stop dead. You're like, nope, that's it. That's all I'm saying.
Mic drop. I'm done.
And one of the things that upcoming, we've got several wonderful guests over the next few weeks and months that we're going to be having on the Streaking podcast. So until we talk again,
keep streaking.